Welcome to the SEA Center's new podcast, Perspectives. We are a New Delhi-based think tank, and this podcast is a platform for our researchers to discuss technology policy issues in an accessible format.
Hi everyone, I'm Shweta, that's Mohit, and this is Chhavi. We're all researchers at the SEA Center, and this is our podcast, Perspectives. We're trying a new format where all of us speak in person to just give our listeners a new way of experiencing this podcast. So this week, we're going to be talking about meme coins. Now, meme coins are not a new concept, they've been around for a long time, but over the past week or so, we've seen a bunch of new developments around them. And we've realized that they pose bigger questions for tech policy, which are still unanswered as of right now. So let's jump straight into it. Mohit, what are meme coins and why is this discussion so relevant now?
Right. So meme coins, like most other forms of cryptocurrency, are essentially virtual digital assets which are hosted on the blockchain, and they're not really backed by anything, which is true for most cryptocurrencies as well. But the primary difference between a meme coin and a different kind of cryptocurrency, say a Bitcoin or an Ethereum, is that meme coins try and maximize internet hype cycles and monetize them. So you have influencers, politicians, all jumping on and launching meme coins associated with their name. So like you mentioned, over the past few weeks, we've had some very notable examples of these coming out. We have Libra, which was associated with President Javier Milei of Argentina. We have Trump and Melania coins, which, I mean, as the name suggests, were associated with the Trump family in the United States, Donald Trump and Melania specifically. And we've also had a lot of influencers like Hawk Tua, who is a famous internet personality now, who also launched a meme coin. So the idea is that most of these people have a lot of hype behind them, and launching a coin is an easy way to sort of monetize that hype and get people to buy into it. Now, theoretically, this sounds like a good idea, right? Especially for a lot of influencers, people who have a huge following, huge cloud. What are the ways for me to monetize it? I can either go the subscription route where I have like a gated community where people are accessing it, or I can go like earn through advertisements and that kind of revenue. But meme coins are, oh, here's this currency that is directly affiliated with me. And if you are a part of my community of followers, you can buy it and potentially gain access to, like restricted live streams, one-to-one interactions, things like that. So there are different benefits associated with it.
Yeah. That's an interesting take. When I first heard of meme coins, it was in relation to Doge, and I think cryptocurrency had just started out back then. And then it transformed into a completely different thing. So I was following this YouTuber, Coffeezilla, who I binge watch a lot, and I was basically going through all the videos. So it starts off pretty mundane with Doge and stuff like that. Then influencers take over, and now we have the literal president of US with a meme coin. I mean, I want to say there's some scope there and like it's a good investment strategy, like a lot of discourse on Reddit would suggest. But I don't think that's the case because a lot of these do result in, a lot of losses and a sort of, they seem very scammy to me. Right. Yeah, so then that brings the second point, right? Which is, are all meme coins really a scam, or is it just the few that have been released over the past weeks or so that we're concerned about here?
Yeah, I think Chhavi sort of alluded to that when she referred to how meme coins have evolved. Initially, most meme coins were associated with cute dogs. So you had like Dogecoin and you had a couple of Dog Whiff Hat and all of these others which have been there. And the idea is like, essentially, as the name suggests, cryptocurrency is based on memes, and because memes, you can think of them as a form of social capital on the internet. So it's a way to monetize that, right? Now, what is really changed is how these coins are distributed and who holds how much of them. So when Doge is concerned, right, Doge is associated with certain celebrities. Elon Musk is one of the biggest proponents of Doge. He was saying that we're going to merge it with X and things of that nature. But despite that, Doge is held pretty widely. Like there are millions of users who hold it, and there's not a few wallets which centralize control. I'm sure there are some wallets which hold a large part of it, but not enough that they can control movements and they can make price go up and down at their will. That is what is true for the most recent meme coins. So what their strategy essentially is that they'll partner here. In case when I say they, I'm referring to like a celebrity or a politician or an influencer. They'll partner with a team which is experienced in launching meme coins. One of them being Chhavi Ventures, which was associated with Javier Milei and their token launch. And what they'll do is, say for instance, if there are 100 tokens,
Hmm.
they'll only release about 5 to 8 of tokens for a public sale, while they'll hold on to the rest of the 93, 97. So this creates like a false sense of scarcity.
Right.
And people are like, oh, I need to get my hands on that Melee coin, I need to get my hands on that Hawktua coin. And they buy, like, the demand for the 8 coins or 7 coins which are in the market really shoots up.
Right.
And that elevates the price for the entirety of the 100. And then when it reaches a particular valuation, they're like, oh, listen, if we sell off our 98, 97, 93, 94, how many coins we have, we can make a real good profit. And they sell it. And because they're selling such a large supply at once, and so much of that coin is entering the market together, it tanks the price. And other consumers who had bought those 8 or 7 coins in the hopes of earning a profit are basically left holding nothing. So it's basically a classic rug pull. They've just found a new instrument to sort of go about it. And there's several reasons for why that is, and I think those are some things that we'll get into as well.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me, that's what happened with the Hawktua girl as well, right? So actually, she launched her meme coin in December 2024 because she realized a lot of other people are launching meme coins in her name, and she said, okay, I may as well sort of do it myself.
Right.
So she came out with her coin, and of course, there was a lot of marketing and stuff pre-release. And then once it was released, it actually reached this really high market cap of $490 million. But then within 20 minutes, it tanked to some $60 million or so because a bunch of people started selling it off. And she was actually sued by investors later who basically said this is a pump and dump scam. And even in that case, what you said is what happened. I think only 3% of the tokens were really meant for public release. 97% of it was held by just 10 wallets or so. And so basically, the speculation is that this was a behind the scenes engineered thing, although she claims and their team claims that the team really never sold any tokens. But that's the sort of thing that happens. And you can actually kind of understand why it's complex, because before you release a meme coin, there are good reasons actually to have some wallets control some amount of the tokens, because you want some stability in the market, especially with something like a meme coin where it's so ephemeral, it's an internet culture phenomenon. You don't really know how the value will pan out after release. So there is some barrier to stability, but I guess what you're saying is it goes overboard, and this obviously creates like a vulnerability which can then be exploited.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are two really interesting points that emerge from what you said. One is, of course, the team itself controls such a large supply, and they also seem to work in association with other traders who are now being referred to as snipers. So these are basically people who have some information about exactly when the token is going to be launched, and they can, based on previous market movements, predict that the value is going to skyrocket. So like within the first 10 to 15 seconds of a token being launched, they're able to buy it really quickly at a low price. And then once the value increases, even these snipers who usually work in association with the development team sell them off. And the second point is that unlike really serious cryptocurrency based projects, and I think it is important to draw a distinction between cryptocurrency projects which pursue a serious objective and meme coins which theoretically could serve as a really interesting way to monetize internet content creation. But currently, how they're working, the main difference is that in most serious projects, the dev team, as you said, does hold on to 50, 60, maybe even 70%. But there are two important distinctions. The first is they clearly communicate to the public about how much they're holding, right, in the forms of white papers, disclosures. And they also have a vesting schedule, which says that we can only sell so many tokens after this period of time is elapsed. Before that, we really can't sell them, so that people who are purchasing this token also have a sense of security that, okay, listen, no one's going to sell it overnight. So the importance of these vesting periods can't be understated in ensuring that people simply don't take off with the money that they've earned due to the hype that's generated after a coin is launched.
Yeah. And I think while that's an across-the-board solution, there is another bigger issue we haven't really gotten into yet. And Chhavi, you were talking about this, right? About a conflict of interest, because right now what we've also been talking about is a broader context for meme coin release. But what really changes to you when it's a political figure and one power that actually ends up releasing meme coin? What do you think the implication is there?
Yeah, I think when it's politicians who are in the picture, it's a completely different ballgame, right? Because then I think the first level is it does it even amount to an abuse of power, right? So, for instance, when we're talking about the Libra coin, Javier Milei put out a tweet saying that this is going to be used for Argentina's economic development and how it's going to play a bigger role in bringing Argentina out of the economic crisis that it's been there. And to his credit, there are certain reforms that he's made which have brought the economy forward. And so people would believe that this is perhaps another one of those economic reforms that he's taking to strengthen the Argentine economy, right? And as a result of that, people start buying into the coin because it appears as something validated or backed by a government functionary. So that's the first level when you have politicians involved, which is whether or not it's an abuse of power. And the second is it potentially provides an avenue for people who want to influence government, influence policy making, to use these channels. And it can be particularly effective in countries where there are otherwise very strict rules around campaign financing. Like in the US, I believe there has to be a lot of disclosure around campaign financing. You have to be very clear on how much you're contributing to whom and how it's being used. But here, given that you can potentially buy meme coins anonymously or pseudonymously and it's difficult to trace it back to you, it could be a way for you to curry favor with a politician. Tomorrow, what's to stop me from buying like a certain amount of Trump coin and telling Donald Trump or the team behind it that, listen, I've bought so many coins now, you better move policy in my way, right? So I think there's a whole bucket of issues when political meme coins are concerned. And some of the solutions we discussed in terms of like white papers and disclosures can be useful for influencers, but I really don't know if they can curb these situations where political meme coins are concerned. And maybe at some point you're going to have to outlaw political meme coins entirely just because of the considerations that we've discussed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, even marketing and communications transparency, if you say it needs to say be consistent with a white paper, only provide fair information, I guess there's no real way to vet that when it's a political figure that's issued it, right? Because there is so much behind the scenes that's going on. So that level of transparency just probably won't exist the way it would for a regular influencer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, if you just think of it from a regulatory perspective, if for every meme coin launch, and there are thousands of meme coin launches which are happening because it's so easy today to launch a meme coin. I can literally go to pump.fun or to Meteora, which are platforms on Solana, and put in basic information about what the meme coin has to be, its name, ticker, amount of coin that I want to be distributed, how I want it to vest, and all of that. And within like 10 to 15 minutes, if you have basic familiarity with how these work, you can have a meme coin up and running. Now, if every time there has to be a disclosure, and the regulator is sitting and going through thousands, 2,000 disclosures. So I think it's going to be a lot of burden on the regulatory authority to sort of sift through all of this. So I think essentially when meme coins and overall strategy is concerned, yes, there are necessary disclosure requirements, etc., that need to be there. But as always, and we've sort of alluded to this in our earlier episodes with influencers, etc., as well, the priority has to be on increasing consumer awareness and understanding of the risks involved with these things, right? And I am not usually someone who advocates for very stringent regulation, and I don't think that's necessarily required here, because I feel if as a mature individual or an adult I feel I want to put my money here, I should be allowed to do that. But at the same time, I should have awareness of all risks and disclosures, and I should understand what it is that I'm putting my money into. And I think that is the gap that really authorities should focus on filling.
So I guess it looks like meme coins present us with a bunch of complex problems that we don't really have solutions for yet in our regulatory framework. And traditional consumer protection solutions may work to some extent, but as you alluded, it looks like when political involvement comes into the picture, we may need something bigger and something more stringent so that everyone is, able to trade fairly and without suffering any adverse losses or consequences.